I'd like to call to order the Hatfield Township Board of Commissioners regular meeting for July 25, 2018. Roll call.
President Zipfel.
Here.
Vice President Hughes.
Here.
Commissioner Andrus.
Here.
Commissioner Rogers.
Here.
Commissioner Thomas.
Here.
Tonight is a big night because we have the recipients of our Chapman Award tonight. To start us off with the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd like if Detective Rich Hoffner and Sergeant Jeff Boyd would lead us in the pledge this evening.
United States of America, for which it stands.
All right. Is there a motion for approval of tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Thomas, second by Commissioner Rogers. All in favor of approving tonight's agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we can move forward with our agenda. Citizens' comments. Are there any citizens' comments on agenda items only? All right, not seeing anyone run up to it, we're going to move on to our consent items. Is there a motion to move into the record the consent items listed in your agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Thomas, second by Commissioner Andrus. Those items include the Board of Commissioners' regular meeting minutes of June 27, the Engineers Report for July, the Pool Advisory Board of June 12, the Police Report for July, the HTMA meeting minutes of June 5, the Colmar Fire Company monthly report for July, the Park and Rec meeting minutes of June 6, the Treasurer's Report of the month of July, and the two bills payable, paid bills in the amount of $303,591.65, and unpaid bills in the amount of $370,599.45. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor of moving those into the record, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we can move those into the record. All right, our special item. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the Chapman Award, this is our highest honor that is given out on an annual basis. And so we very much look forward to this evening, and we're very pleased to know that we have a number of the recipients and their family members here. So I'm going to hand the microphone over, so to speak, to Detective Rich Hoffner and Sergeant Jeff Boyd, who will walk us through this great event this evening.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Tonight, we're pleased to have the opportunity to publicly recognize the recipients of the 2018 Officer William J. Chapman Memorial Scholarship, and we're honored that some of Officer Chapman's family are here for this occasion. If I could have John Sheets come on up. The scholarship, which is in its 13th year, honors a colleague who was a Hatfield Township police officer for 15 years until his death in 2005 following a serious illness. Officer Chapman was not only an exemplary police officer, but also an extraordinary man. Those who were fortunate enough to call him a friend remember his kindness, his loyalty, tireless optimism, and his remarkable sense of humor. Those who met him because of his profession remember a sincere and fair officer whose efforts never strayed from serving our community with dedication and benevolence. To honor Officer Chapman and continue his legacy, his fellow officers founded this scholarship. We could think of no better way to cultivate the ideals held by Officer Chapman than by assisting students who have chosen a career that personally invests their efforts and talents back into their communities. Graduating high school seniors seeking an undergraduate degree in a public service-oriented field such as criminal justice, education, social work, and in this case, medicine and nursing, are eligible to apply for this scholarship. The students being acknowledged tonight exemplify the spirit of this scholarship, and while we were very impressed with their scholastic accomplishments, they distinguished themselves through their outstanding personal achievements and commitments to their communities. Officer Chapman will be proud of these extraordinary young adults receiving the scholarship bearing his name. Congratulations to each of you, and thank you for helping us honor our friend.
Good evening. So we have 4 recipients tonight, and I'm just going to go through a quick bio on each of them. And when I call your name, if you could please stand and come up front here, and then when we get everybody together, I think we'll take a pause and do some photographs. So our first recipient is Erin Druding. She's joined tonight by her mother, Lisa Druding. Erin is a graduate of Lansdale Catholic High School, where she received first and second honors during her entire 4 years there. While attending Lansdale Catholic, Erin was involved with CYO Volleyball, Operation Smile Club, her church parish at St. Rose of Lima. Erin constantly gave back to her community, and she was involved with just a few things here. Volunteered at Lansdale Hospital, Abington Jefferson Health's Hospital Elder Life Program. She also volunteered for 4 years with Operation Smile. She started a Operation Smile Club at Lansdale Catholic to raise funds and awareness for children and adults in third world countries with facial deformities. She also volunteered at Lansdale Catholic High School's Community Service Corps. Somehow, with not only all of her schoolwork and volunteer going on, she also worked as a gymnastics coach and a babysitter during the week. Erin will be attending Moravian College in the fall, pursuing a degree in nursing. Congratulations, Darren. Our second recipient of the scholarship award is Olivia Follis. She's joined here tonight by her mother, Teresa Follis. Olivia is a graduate of North Penn High School, where she graduated with a rank of 27 out of 992 students. She had distinguished honor roll all 4 years of high school. While attending North Penn, Olivia was involved with the girls' soccer, where she played varsity for 3 years. She was the president of the North Penn National Spanish Honor Society. She was a member of the National Honor Society. She was also involved with girls bowling, the Link Club, the Salsa Club, the Goodwill Ambassadors. She also was involved in several community service undertakings, and she volunteered at the health clinic in Philadelphia, which serviced low-income and undocumented citizens. She also volunteered at North Penn's lacrosse snack stand. She also volunteered at Man on Main Street. She also worked. She was a daycare worker during the week. Olivia will be attending Temple University in the fall, pursuing a degree in biology with a pre-med track. Congratulations, Olivia. Our third scholarship recipient is Ariana Gardizzi. Maria is her mother. Maria is here with Ariana tonight. Ariana is a graduate of North Penn High School. She was ranked 41 out of 992. She received distinguished honors every marking period. While attending North Penn, Ariana was heavily involved with track and cross country. She was the captain of both teams. She has earned numerous state, local, and national awards for her excellence. She has also achieved All-American honors. She holds school records. She was also involved with student government, the National Honor Society, and Key Club. Ariana also gave back to the community by participating in Red Cross blood drives, Toys for Tots. She volunteered at the Ronald McDonald House, and she did outreach to the homeless in Philadelphia. Somehow, between school and her volunteer work, she still found time to gainfully employ herself at Pumpernicks as a waitress. Ariana will be attending the University of Pennsylvania in the fall and pursuing a degree in nursing. Congratulations, Ariana. And our fourth recipient tonight is Julia Mumford, if you could come up. She is joined here tonight by her parents, David and Patty Mumford, and her brother and sister as well. Julie is a graduate of North Penn High School, where she excelled at volunteering and giving back to the community. While attending North Penn, Julie was involved with the North Penn High School Key Club. She served as its treasurer and then president during her senior year. She organized monthly fundraising for Man on Main Street and several other nonprofits during the school year. She also participated in Varsity Unified Bocce Team and Varsity Unified Track Team. Julia gave back to her community and was involved in several things, including the American Red Cross, where she set up and volunteered at blood drives. She also volunteered at Special Olympics. She also volunteered heavily at Lansdale Hospital, where she participated in the hospital's occupational therapy internship as well. Julia also managed to work during all this time and was an employee of Smoke Daddy's Barbecue in Lansdale, a personal favorite of mine. And Julia will be attending Penn State University in the fall, pursuing a degree in occupational therapy. Congratulations, Julie. If it's okay with the board, if we could, if Mr. Ziffel would like to come up and make some remarks prior to some pictures being taken.
You just knew that.
I did.
guess that's from years past. I'm going to somehow take that as a compliment. I'm not sure how. I'm joking. I say this, some version of this every year, because it's just very telling and it's very appropriate. The recipients, in particular those of you who received it this year, listening to what you have done, just up to your senior year, it's remarkable. You have done more in your lifetime than, just by senior year than many have done in their entire life, and you should be very proud of that. And while not to the exclusion of others, I'm going to pick on Julie just for a second, because I have known her since she was 7 years old, and fantastic kid, fantastic family. I'm not surprised for a second that she is a recipient of one of our best awards. To all of you, to not just the four of you, but to moms and dads who supported them throughout this. You should get awards too, that's correct, for all the driving and all the support and all the parental anxiety that goes along with having kids that are so involved and such fantastic achievers. I want to congratulate you as well. So to you as a group, the recipients and parents, congratulations on behalf of the board.
They come up front. We're going to go right in the center of the...
Have a picture.
You have those pens to give him? There was 4 of them, so I thought maybe you did. Thanks, Rich.
No, I don't think so either.
Okay, the rest of the meeting is not as exciting. However, feel free to stick around or run off and celebrate, whichever you choose to do. It's fine. Yeah, we never get anyone to stick around. No, Tina, you have to stay. I'm joking.
She almost fell for that.
Okay. All right, we're going to jump right into committee reports. Planning and Zoning Committee, Commissioner Rogers.
Okay, item number 1 is the Walnut Land Development discussion.
I think we have a graphic coming up on this. This is a project that has been before the township for well over a year at this point. It is a 6.9 acre parcel on Walnut Street. It involves the extension of Fortuna Drive and provides for a total of 9 new building lots. The lot with the dot on it is the subject property. I believe we have the rendering. There we are. We have the graphic that shows the 9 lots. There was a recommendation from the Planning Commission after their April meeting. It was conditioned upon compliance with all the township review letters, and also they conditioned their recommendation on formation of a homeowners association to monitor and be responsible for the stormwater management facilities on the lot. The Planning and Zoning Committee discussed this project about a month ago, and they asked for a reconfiguration of the emergency access strip and also some additional setbacks between a property at the end of the existing Fortuna Drive and Lot 9. Lot 9 is the one that I'm indicating right here. After that meeting, the developer resubmitted plans, which shows 2 things. It shows a designated emergency access lane out to Walnut Street, so it's no longer shared with the with this lot that I'm indicating here. And also, the house on Lot 9 was moved approximately 10 feet further from the property line and is now shown at 33.8 feet. This will be really the first opportunity for the full board to see the plan. It's been seen at this point by staff, the Planning Commission, and the Planning and Zoning Committee. Mr. Case is the developer. He's here this evening, and he can tell you a little bit about the project. Also, at your places, you had a letter from a Mr. Paul Mort, who is the resident of the existing lot that I'm indicating here, which is right at the end of Fortuna Drive. And I'm sure Mr. Mort will want to speak with you as well. Jim Case is here. Yes, he is.
Jim, could you please go to the microphone so everyone could hear you, please? Yes, sir.
At this point, firstly, I'd like to correct the timing on this, as we're going into the 4th year. So I've been involved in this thing almost enough that I'm ready to start my engineering school, but I might be a little too old. But the project is, the reason this thing was so long and so difficult to do is because it had some wetlands in it we had to deal with, which involved the Army Corps of Engineers and a lot of different studies. And we also moved the stormwater basin. Well, we didn't move it. We're using the assisted living home there. We're using that basin primarily because all the water was going in there anyway. So we just thought it'd be easier to just put it in there and manage it from there. But other than that, it's one of the lots, lot 10, that's already built. It was kind of a mistake. We built it as a model so that we could begin to sell it, but then when the delays came, it was already built, so there wasn't anything we could do about it then.
I think that was part of the reason for the delays.
I'm sorry?
I believe that was part of the reasons for a lot of the delays.
Building the house?
Yeah, blocking off coming out to Walnut Street there.
Oh. Well, we had a meeting at the very beginning, and that's what was suggested to go back to Fortuna, so that wasn't on our agenda when submitting all this. But other than that, I'd be happy to answer any questions I can answer.
I have one question. Mr. Case, I'm going to direct your attention to Lot 9.
Yes.
You heard Mr. Amy's reference to how you moved that home for the setbacks. Is it plausible or possible to move that building a little bit further to comply with the code and to address the issues raised by the adjacent property owner? Would you be willing to do such a thing?
Well, we already did. It complied with code before we moved it. So we moved it an additional 10 feet. And yeah, he moved it as far as he could because our driveway there would be smack up against it.
No other options to kind of give a little bit more of a buffer for that adjacent property owner?
That's what we did. We gave an additional 10 feet.
We're in receipt of a letter from Mr. Paul Mort, who's requesting a little bit more, not a substantial amount more. So just wondering if you would consider addressing that.
Well, I would if there was any more room, but there isn't. We did move it all the way.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead.
We have all the documentation on the right-of-way as far as how close it is to the property lines.
I'm sorry?
And I believe there was a concern with the right-of-way, the emergency lane being right up against the property there.
Yes.
Have all the documentation from the neighbor there.
Yes, I believe we do, don't we, Brian?
I think what's being referred to is, you had mentioned, I believe it was the Planning and Zoning Committee meeting, that you're going to get something in writing from that adjacent property owner that said they didn't have an issue with it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know that's what you're talking about. Yes.
Right, Bob?
Yes, we haven't. My attorney's doing a letter. We spoke to the homeowners there, explained what we were going to do, so I'll have that signed and brought over.
I just want a point of clarification here. You haven't done all you can do to move Lot 9 home or building envelope. An option would have been to make that a front entry garage and shift that house over further. Understood, not willing to do that? not willing to do a neighborly thing for an existing town or homeowner, but there are options, and you've chosen not to pursue those.
Well, I did pursue the option that I thought was best for the homeowner and for us, the developer.
To be clear, it was best for you. It certainly wasn't best for the homeowner that currently lives there. And we can agree to disagree and end the conversation there. There's a request to, instead of having that or the sidewalk transition on or the corner property there, have that property or that sidewalk transition on Lot 9's property. And at the property line, that homeowner, he would taper down to the 4 foot.
Yes, we did, I believe we did, Brian. Did we agree to bring that down to 4 foot in front of them?
You agreed to do that, but showing the adjustment is something that will be, or should be, on the plans that your engineer is working on.
Okay.
So that ultimately, before the plan is recorded,
It'll show
for the
that?
board.
Yeah, then yes, that would be
Before we
done.
Before we recommend to the board, we feel it's ready for approval, we'll need to make sure that that's shown on there. And the transition can happen, it's just a matter of
Oh, sure.
how. I mean,
Well, can we do that in some kind of form other than redoing the plan?
oh, well, it's got to be shown on the plan. I mean,
Okay.
there's no reason to have it in any other form. I mean, the sidewalk that will be built needs to be shown on the plan. So I don't understand what other form there would be.
Legally, it has to be shown on the plan.
Oh, all right, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, that's,
Other questions, comments? I do, Mr. Mort, is he here? Mr. Mort, if you'd like to speak now's a good opportunity. That's up to you. I mean, you have a very coherent, well-laid out letter that we're reviewing, that we've received. Like, you can also go to the podium and speak tonight. Don't feel compelled to do so, but that's up to you.
You can proceed, Mr. Moore.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't want to cut anybody off. No, I won't belabor anything. Hopefully I did make my points in that letter. With regard to the setbacks that the developer has attempted to make, I do believe he can go further, and I'd obviously like more. I think he's going to need that to correct the inevitable runoff that's going to come off that property. At the last Planning Commission meeting I was at, the engineer made a statement that he couldn't move the driveway because of an Army Corps permit associated with the culvert. And I'll accept that if I was designing, and I am an engineer, I would put the culvert at the narrowest place. But there are other options. You can change it to a front entrance garage. You can make Lot 8 smaller, shift some of Lot 9 to that. You can get another 5 feet. You just got to work at it. I don't see an issue with that. Overall, I mean, this developer's project has been going on for 4 years. I mean, that speaks to the difficulty of developing this lot. The Planning Commission, there was a lot of debate about infiltration berms and needing to have the stormwater dissipate over 24 hours. And in my letter, I delineated that I don't think infiltration berms are going to work in a wooded area, which is the whole reason why this concept of a homeowners association came up, because it's unreasonable for homeowners to have to deal with that. My real concern is not 24-hour infiltration. It's the instantaneous runoff. And in my letter, I cited early in July, there was a freak thunderstorm that was intense for an hour. And I know about this because it screwed me up on 309. 309 flooded. What happens on my property is that flow comes out of the woods, heads straight to the 2 inlets that are already on my property, and gets diverted into a swale. The swale works now. The previous homeowner did a fantastic job building it. There's freeboard. So my point in my letter is that I'm going to monitor that swale during every thunderstorm and take pictures of it and document that it works. My concern is that there is no detention upstream of my property within the development. All the detention is downstream after it's already gone past the existing features. And I'm very concerned that those intense storms are going to overrun my swale. And when it overruns, it's going to flood parts of my yard that are not normally wet. And really, that's the bottom line. I truly believe that engineering-wise, the white elephant that the developer doesn't want to address is that there should be detention upstream within the development.
Is that, do you think, is that your kind of the most significant concern from your property perspective? And then if that is, do you have a recommendation on how, you said you're an engineer, so I'm going to try and take advantage of your knowledge. Do you have a recommendation on how it could be adjusted?
Amy didn't want to make a recommendation, and I think it involves some kind of detention. I mean, a detention basin, a subsurface detention, there are different ways that you can do it. And the real white elephant is you take away one lot, and you create a basin on that lot. You do 8 houses instead of 9, and you deal with it. So, I mean, everything else about sidewalk transitioning, that's a minor thing. I mean, logically, you're going to make the transition at a property line. You know, I may be a little bit petty about wanting the homeowners association to deal with the future upkeep of the sidewalk. I don't particularly want to bear that responsibility if something cracks, but so be it. So really, it is the instantaneous high-intensity storms that I'm most concerned about, and not having any detention upstream of the existing properties.
So if I'm following, and I'm not in your area of work, if that detention area existed, this would, your property would be protected more so than you would otherwise be under this plan, and really, there's not, the other items are, I don't want to say lesser, but they are less significant.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. I mean, the whole premise is that there'll be no net increase of runoff coming off of the development.
Okay.
And I'm very concerned that that's not going to be the case on peak storms, high-intensity storms.
Brian, if you have something.
Yeah, I understand Mr. Mort's concerns, and in these situations, I'm always try to be cautious because I don't live where he lives, so I don't see what it's like when it rains heavy. One of the features, and I understand his concern, the majority of the water from the development, and I'm jumping in here, try to help explain what we've seen and what we've tried to accomplish within our abilities during the course of the design. Mr. Mort's correct. The flow from the development goes to the basin that's over here, is off the page, but what happens is, and there will still be water getting to the inlets on Mr. Mort's property, which are right over here. One of the features that was added, large part because of the conversations we've had with Mr. Mort at the various planning commission meetings and the meetings that I've had and the conversations that I've had with Mr. Case's engineer, is there's a storm pipe that's been added here. There's a head wall that's been added here, and it takes the flow over into the storm sewer system that's in the street. So all the flow that currently runs through this wetland area collected at this head wall and taken over. So, yeah, there will still be runoff going here, but it will primarily be from this area property here. It will no longer be the flow that currently gets to this point. Everything from this point up will be collected by this head wall that takes it over to the street and then to the detention. So I'm not suggesting that as a response to Mr. Moore to say, hey, we fixed it, but there was a concerted effort to try to improve the condition and reduce the flow that gets to his property, so that this front yard for Lot 9 will flow towards the existing channel. I forget where the break is on between 8 and 9, but it's roughly, I believe it's roughly between the driveways. The water will go towards the front. The water from here will go towards the back. So it'll be this area, most of which is proposed to remain wooded, that will be getting to those inlets. And like I said, the area that currently drains to this point from everything up here will be picked up by that head wall and taken into the street. I don't think, it's been a little while since that pipe was added and we had those extensive discussions. I don't believe we had enough vertical change in this area to pick something up here and take it over, in part because this channel is all regulated wetland area. So yes, there was a pipe put in for this driveway, or will be put in for the driveway that needed a permit, but we didn't want to take stormwater and cross this again just to get it into the basin. I'm not sure if we would have had enough vertical drop anyway. So the location that was chosen here, we're still picking up a good portion of the site, as well as anything that comes from off the page into the site, and picking that up and taking it out. So that there is a reduction of the amount of area that gets to those inlets, or will be after the development is built. Hopefully that, well, I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, and I try to be careful about how I say what will happen, because nobody knows what will happen. But I do know that with the head wall being placed where it is, that will pick up the runoff that gets to that point now. The pipe system is designed for the 100-year storm. So, I mean, I'm confident that it will pick up everything that gets to that point, but from that point down, there is going to be runoff. And certainly, we are not addressing anything that happens on the properties that are, in this case, to the left. So, on this site, we're trying to do as best we can in terms of guiding Mr. Case's engineer to help address the concern.
All right, any other questions, comments?
Brian, how many inlets will be in that street, will be added?
In the street itself, I think there are 9 in the street. Because of the way the existing channels cut through the property, kind of, it's not like a more standard subdivision, kind of like Belmont Estates, where you had your houses and they were running parallel to the street. Front yards drained in, rear yards for the most part drained back. That's not the case here because of the channels that flow throughout the site. Some of the runoff from the front yards gets directly to the channel, which goes out and through. All of it does get to the basin. The basin is downslope of Mr. Moore's property. I think that's where his concern is. But the water that gets to his 2 inlets, a good portion of that is being picked up by the head wall that will be part of the design. But inlet-wise, yeah, I think there's 8 in the street. Yeah.
Said that system is adequate or will support.
It's designed to meet the flow for a 100-year storm, same as the basin.
All right, any other I'm glad you came back up to the podium. I have a follow-up question for you.
Go ahead.
Based on the conversation we just had for the last 10 minutes, do you have any suggestions or consideration? Do you have any consideration of making adjustments to what we're looking at here based on the conversation we just had?
No. No, all the adjustments that we did make was what was required of us at the planning that we agreed to do. And to pick up a couple of 3 or 4 feet and crowd that driveway over there just doesn't make sense to us. We gave them 10 feet. And again, too, that by right, we didn't have to do that. So I thought that we were doing the right thing. As far as that wet area there, my engineer had assured me that what's going to come there right now is substantially less. What's going to come there in the future is substantially less than what he has right now, because of the way we've directed. All of this water used to go there. This water coming up on this left side drops down in there, and then there's the berm. I'm pretty sure that berm is right there on the lower side of that driveway. Water coming in the back even gets pushed out to there. Again, 100-year regulations and what he's went through to design this thing, all that came into consideration over and over and over.
We have two more people that look like they want to have, they want to make a citizen's comment. Sure. Just please state your name, your address, and then feel free to give us your comment.
Hi, I'm Nancy Berge. I live at 281 Fortuna Drive. I live across from the Morts. And I have had some emails with Ken and Amy. Part of my concern, not alone with the whole development, is the question about what you refer to as the basin. The basin is what sits on the side of our house, okay? We're at the end of the cul-de-sac where the basin is. Now, when you talk about the water, and I'm not civil engineers or anything, but when we had Sandy, okay, that basin got all the way up pretty high that I was afraid it was going to land in our basement, okay, of where it came, because we're on the opposite side and where it flows. So my question is, I hear saying, when I had asked Mr. Amy before, who takes care of that basin, all right? The answer was the township is. I'm not being smart or anything like that, but I've never really seen the township do anything. We pretty much, when it was the Mortises and us, we took care of that area around there. So now that you say if the homeowners are doing it, what happens if that water rises up and goes over? What are we as homeowners to do? We go back to the homeowners. What authority do the homeowners have to do to maintain that?
Currently, that basin is maintained by the owners of the nursing home. That's not, the township does no maintenance at all on that basin.
Okay.
It's privately owned. What Mr. Case has worked out with the owners of the nursing home is modifications to the basin to accept the additional flow from this development. One of the reasons the Planning Commission required that there be a homeowners association formed as part of this development is so the homeowners association would then be responsible for maintenance on that basin and all the other stormwater management facilities that are on the individual lots. The homeowners association documents would be reviewed by the township solicitor to make sure that there are provisions in there for the township to be able to step in if necessary, but the homeowners association would be responsible for the general maintenance of all of those facilities.
And is there a certain legal turnaround time when they'd have to do that?
They have to address it in an expedited manner for the public health, safety, and welfare of all the residents. So that would fall on the township to enforce.
And would that be reviewed before you as commissioners approve the project?
What would be reviewed?
What the terms and conditions would be of the homeowners association?
The homeowners association would be created with bylaws and a declaration. In the declaration would set forth obligations to make sure they address the maintenance and operation of that area. We will review that in conjunction with the township engineer to make sure your issues are addressed.
Okay.
I'm sorry, can I ask, where exactly is your home again? Okay, that's, all right, I thought maybe we could
It's
see a
above the
portion of it.
UT in Walnut.
Okay, all right, that just gives me an idea. Understood, thank you.
My name is Amy Toth, and I live at 190 Logan Drive. So, third box down on the left, one more. We already had one house removed behind my lot, so I appreciate that. This was already reduced by one house. And I want to speak on behalf of all of the residents who live along my side, as well as on the other side of Logan Drive. We have very wet basements, constantly lakes in our yard, and something we've been living with. We don't want it to get any worse. And in fact, we have channels of water above surface that are coming from this area every time it rains. So we have standing water, we have running water, and it's just something that we live with. We're very concerned that this is going to remove even more surface area. We want to make sure those wetlands are preserved, that they aren't built on top of. We want to make sure that when driveway extensions are created, sheds are built, any deck, any other use of this land, that it doesn't yet eliminate any more opportunity for the water to sink into the ground, and that it won't come and wash over into the rest of Logan Drive. My main concern is the flow, and we talked about the point where it goes downstream towards the Morts and the Bergies. It's still kind of flowing back in this lower left-hand corner, potentially. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I got a question. Interesting comment. I've seen associations restrict ancillary buildings. Is that what this is doing or not? Can it be that way?
That's not what it's doing. What it's doing is placing the obligation for the maintenance and inspection at the association. That, in terms of if they place any structures or anything that would hinder the operation of the basin, that would have to be notified to the township. The township would direct the association to address it to the satisfaction of the township engineer.
I guess I'm talking about ancillary buildings. So if 8 properties put up a 20 by 20 shed, have that much less impervious cover. Can we have the homeowner association restrict that building, or does that fall under our code?
And procedurally, when would you address that? A building permit or the permit issued for the shed, or?
Whenever a building permit's issued, we would look at impervious cover for the entire lot and make sure that the impervious cover still complies with the ordinance requirements.
We'd have to have the developer agree to a restriction then?
No, that's covered by the zoning ordinance.
Yeah, the procedures in place with the zoning ordinance and the permit process.
I'm not sure I'm making myself clear.
I don't know, I got to get the feeling because this area is so wet, can we restrict further than what our ordinance calls for to make sure no runoff problems going into the other properties?
Use the word restrict, you have to define that further for me.
It's like commissioners, if somebody wants to build a 20 by 20 barn, and we go by percent coverage on a property, on a lot.
Yes.
And that may not really work here as far as the runoff. Is there something we can do to ensure that when they put that building in, that's not going to create a problem for any of the neighbors?
Yeah, no, I think the code is the code. The code would control that. The permit process, the due diligence through that process would address that. And it has to all be done to the township engineer's satisfaction. So I think the safeguards are in place. The main thing with this was creating the association, so there was ultimately a body that would be responsible when we do identify those issues to rectify it. I think you can't be in a situation where you could just restrict if the code does not allow for such restrictions.
Might as well complicate this further. But if a homeowners association would voluntarily restrict sheds within its development, that is within its rights.
Absolutely, just like they would restrict.
I think that's what Commissioner Andrews is saying. As you create the HOA, would you be willing to put restrictions on ancillary properties such as sheds or in-ground swimming pools, any other impervious additions?
Would we do it under the homeowners association?
Yes. Would you consider doing that?
Typically, no, because that's all done under code. Same thing we have to operate under. In other words, they can't have a increase the impervious by 10 or 15% and not put something in that'll take away from that. Each one of these lots has additional impervious that it can do.
Oh, we understand.
Yeah.
We're still asking if you'd be willing to put in your HOA documents that would prevent these homeowners from putting in sheds and other impervious coverage.
Oh, I would rather not. They hate the homeowners associations anyway, but if you put them in there with a bunch of restrictions, that is really...
Well, I think that's something, now I understand what you're saying. I think from the association standpoint, you may want to think about that because it actually will help the association because ultimately the responsibility to maintenance and upkeep of the basin is with the association. So having a restriction that no structures can be placed in a way that would hinder the operation of those basins actually helps the association. But that's something that we can maybe address with your attorney during the process of reviewing the declaration and the operation of the association.
Yeah, that'd be fair. I would do that.
So for clarification for me, the basins, so we modified the basin, or the basin will be able to handle more capacity. What exactly is that basin going to do? Get larger?
Yes.
Okay.
It actually is getting larger. There's an area.
I got you, Brian. How about here?
So
Basin, right?
Basin where the cursor is, the basin is where the cursor is. There's a little green strip.
So we're actually, so,
Little green strip right here.
right.
Between the parking lot and the current bowl portion of the basin. That grass strip is going to be completely hogged out, for lack of a delicate phrase, and that additional volume will be provided there.
That additional volume based on the current designed impervious cover, or does it take into account what might go in the ground later on?
Well, the way the design stands now, and this was without, and this is one of the reasons that we requested the additional, or not additional, but we requested the other design adjustments prior to recommending approval, is that before the lot configuration that was shown, before that, there was an additional 500 square feet per lot that had been accounted for in the design, in terms of sizing that basin and the infiltration berms and all that. The creation of the separate driveway and emergency access, that created additional impervious surface. So I assume that there will still be a little bit of float for the individual homeowners, but I don't know how much that will be because the design as it stood before had an additional 500 square feet per lot. I want to say off the top of my head, I think that the creation of the separate emergency access and driveway added on about 1,500 square feet or something like that. So those numbers all have to be crunched. So I suspect that there will still be a little bit of fat stormwater management design, but it'll be less than it was before.
So a little bit of fat would account for whatever somebody else can put on those properties or not?
Yeah.
So if somebody if every house decides to put a swimming pool in a 20 by 20 shed, that basin's designed to handle that?
No, because in my experience with the grading and drainage permits that we're getting, which include the pools,
right?
You need a permit if you're increasing impervious surface by 1,000 square feet or more, or you're disturbing more than 1,000 square feet.
Right.
Dirt. 1,000 square feet and up, you have to provide for stormwater management.
On the property itself?
On the property itself, because it's handled obviously on a case-by-case basis. So to your example, the pools that we're seeing, easily 90% of the pools wind up being anywhere from 1,200 to 1,800 square feet, new impervious. So that, say it's 1,800 square feet. Just rough numbers, if all the lots, instead of having 500 square feet extra, are down to 400. You got an 1,800 square foot pool, so 400 comes out of that, you're still behind the 8 ball.
Right.
So the lot owners, not the HOA, not the rest of the development, the lot owners would be responsible for that additional impervious and additional new stormwater management on their lot.
If they're not able to do that, then the pool doesn't go in where the shed does?
Yes. I haven't come across one where they haven't been able to make it work yet, but yeah.
This is a special circumstance here, right? We know there's floodplains back there, and we're really maximizing what's going in there based on
right.
desire to have a side entry garage, maximize profits, the driveway and all that stuff, right?
Well, and yes, and in addition to the features that will be built that you're talking about, one of the conditions of the design is that the wooded areas, there's a specific area of woods that will be retained. And that's typical for any subdivision design. You show where you're going to stop cutting down the trees. But in the newer designs, last 5 years or so, if you retain wooded areas, you're able to get credits towards stormwater management. So not only would the limits of tree clearing, it kind of has to stay the way it is on the plan. Because if you take down trees that were shown to be preserved, that has to be factored into putting back that stormwater management control. So the nature of the site is such that, yes, the individual lot owner would be responsible for putting in additional controls, but they couldn't just take down a bunch of trees and put a basin in because it kind of defeats the purpose. So it just, I guess not surprisingly, it would become as complicated as the design for this in general. Just for somebody to put in a pool, yes. It wouldn't be impossible, but it would be much more complicated than most of the ones that I'm seeing.
Another question is, the basin's not designed for all of what could potentially be maxed out from impervious cover. But for whatever it's not capable of taking, the homeowner would be responsible for making sure that water doesn't rate that would overrun that basin.
Yes.
All right, Brian, are you saying a swimming pool is impervious?
Swimming pools are counted as impervious, yes.
I'm just doing two in Warrington, and they're not. The water is not impervious.
This
The
is not,
decking-
but I don't want to sound like a smart guy, but this is not Warrington. In Hatfield, the way it has been and is evaluated is that the water surface area as well as the concrete decking is counted as impervious. Specifically because the area beneath the pool can no longer infiltrate water. Yes, the pool surface itself, you usually have a little bit of fat before the coping starts. That has nothing to do with the water quality and the groundwater recharge. So Hatfield, the interpretation in Hatfield is that the water surface area is counted as impervious surface.
All right, so this is on our agenda tonight for discussion.
Discussion only.
Discussion only. So unless somebody has additional information.
I have a couple more questions for Brian. Sorry,
Absolutely.
Tom. Brian, you said that the basin is owned and maintained by the nursing home.
Currently, yes.
Is that going to change if this development goes in then?
Mr. Case has an agreement with the nursing home. I have not personally reviewed it, but I believe early in the process he acknowledged that he has it. I don't recall if he sent it to the township for review.
Yes, it was.
Nor do I recall the exact conditions, but there is an agreement.
Okay, and
That
so
he's partnering up with
if
them.
that agreement should take place and it's no longer under the ownership and maintenance of the nursing home, then who would be responsible for that, the HOA?
Well, that's something that, as Mr. Iannozzi alluded to, the HOA documents, as well as that agreement, will have to be reviewed to make sure that there is going to be maintenance of that facility in perpetuity. I certainly don't want to overstep my bounds and start talking about legal stuff, but we certainly understand how critical it is for this to work. And the reality is, if that basin wasn't there, then a basin would have to be built on this property. And Mr. Case is correct. The water all does go to that basin. So it was kind of a nice situation that the water's going there anyway. I tell you what, I'll partner up with you guys. We'll make it bigger. We'll work something out. But there has to be documentation for maintenance of it in perpetuity, yes.
That documentation happened before, or when does the documentation happen?
It's a good point. In conjunction with reviewing the association documents, we would want to take a look at that agreement to make sure that's in place and it provides for addressing the flows from your site.
I believe that was sent over to Christine.
So we will take that into consideration. And to answer your question, it would be part of the approval process, probably have it in the resolution as a condition of approval, that they have to be to the satisfaction of the Township Solicitor's Office and Township Engineer, both agreements.
Would that be before or after a decision?
That would be before and also reference in the resolution of approval.
All right.
I guess real quickly, what's the difference between that being a pond and just a dry basin? What's the advantage of having it as a pond?
A pond is generally looked at as a nice aesthetic feature. One of the issues that came up for discussion over the last several meetings was there appears to be a constant stream to feed a pond. The reconfiguration of the current basin will create a ponded area. I don't honestly know if that was something that was discussed with the nursing home or not, if it was just a design choice by Mr. Case's engineer. Personally, I'm kind of on the fence about the benefits versus, of having a pond versus just a naturalized basin. I could go either way. I mean, it is an area where sediment can be collected. becomes problematic and a little more costly when you have to go in to dredge it to get the sediment out as it accumulates. That doesn't happen. You don't have to do it that frequently, but it is something that you do have to do. And we've actually had discussions with DEP as it relates to the MS4 permit and that the township has as to how basins factor in versus ponds. Probably ask 10 engineers and get 10 different answers.
When we were designing that basin, and the engineers, the geo studies, the pond-type basin has its own ecosystem. That was sold to us as a big advantage because you put the flowers in there that attract a certain insects or bugs that eat the mosquitoes, and the trees that are in there eat the algae, and it kind of works by itself. So the maintenance is supposed to be almost nothing on these pond-type basins.
So, question you prompted me to ask about sediment removal. So as we move forward with the regulations that are being put in place, will there be accumulation of sediment, you have to clean it out, or is it just merely observation the township would make and have the homeowner clear out a sediment?
The plans, as well as the NPDES permit that the applicant's required to get, they require a maintenance program to be established. So that becomes part of the water management agreement that gets recorded with the plan. So the maintenance of all of the stormwater facilities gets spelled out, frequency, what's supposed to happen, and
For approval?
Oh, yeah.
Before decisions made?
Correct.
How do you track and confirm that that maintenance is done as is prescribed? Photographs, or how do you hold someone accountable to make sure that work is finished on a timely manner?
Generally, I don't know if the Public Works Department has a specific schedule. Go look at private basins. Frankly, in the past, it's and if there's a problem.
So that's what I'm trying to avoid, if the problem
Oh,
does come
understood.
up, right?
Yeah.
So is there any way we can tickle the township to have that maintenance schedule in mind to confirm through either receipt or contract or work order or whatever?
I would probably recommend against putting the onus on the township to keep an eye on it. I think the declaration and the operation and maintenance agreement would address it. And honestly, the best safeguard for that is the residents to keep an eye on it. And if there's a problem, they should just contact the township, and then we will address it accordingly.
So I'm talking about, there's a maintenance program that might be stipulated every 3 years, every 6 years, or whatever that stipulation is. How do we confirm that's done on the schedule that's mandated? The obligation is to make sure that work is finished.
Brian, procedurally, how would that be addressed?
Generally, it's the honor system is typically what happens.
Right, so
the basins, for instance, commercial basins, the company that owns the basin
Right.
generally has a landscape company, whatever, they come and do it. It normally, I hate to say it, but it kind of takes care of itself. I haven't come across too many situations where basins just flat out become so problematic that the township has to get involved.
Again, I think it's a special exception, so can we put something, homeowners association requires communication to the township, waiting for the if event or when event?
We can address your concerns in those documents.
The other question I had is homeowner association funding. I have belonged to a couple condominium complexes, and generally those are underfunded. Is there a minimum obligation that the state of Pennsylvania requires? Sale of those homes, there's a minimum balance in that homeowner association determines that.
Not to sound like a broken record, but those documents would be recorded against each lot, and they run with the land. So the the property owner buying those lots would be known of the obligations of the association and the requirements.
I know. So
And
my
funding
question
of
is how much
such.
money? What money will be left in that account?
It's up to the association.
It's up to the association, but ultimately the obligation is on the association.
Understood.
So if they don't act accordingly, the obligation will fall back to the lot owners as members of that association.
That worked in the stipulations too when you started drafting that HOA? I think the township should have some say on what is required to be in that fund. So the event something happens, we're not beating a dead horse and there's not any money available to get things done, and then we have to go in and do stuff ourselves. I don't want that to be the case.
Understood.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Okay, good. Any other?
I did
Thank
stay
you,
out for
Mr.
the
Case,
Phillies game last night, so you guys got me on my deal.
Today.
Thank you, Mr. Case, for coming in this evening. Thank you for all of the residents that spoke this evening. Thank you for coming out to the meeting and giving us your feedback. Commissioner Rogers, anything else under planning and zoning?
That's it for tonight. Thank you.
All right, Public Works Committee, Vice President Hughes.
The 2018 road program is underway. We're paving 3.5 miles worth of roads, and we've replaced 31 ADA ramps. Public Works is also working with Lansdale Public Works to installing a new parking lot at Swikard Park on Moore Road. Everybody knows the weather's been a challenge with the rain, sometimes sun, sometimes. So they're hoping to complete that by September. Public Works also has installed path lighting in School Road Park. It's a continuation of the LED path lights up and around the hardball field. It's a great asset for the fields use at night. And Public Works continues working on the Fricks Trail. They're building several boardwalks and hope to start phase 2 in the fall. Public Works is open on a third Saturday from 8 to noon for recycling branches and stuff like that. The next one will be August 18th. And also, reminder, please don't blow your leaves and grass into the street or storm drains. The storm drains need to be kept clean. We have to go out and clean them out. You know, when you mow your lawn, you should keep it in your yard. And I suggest a mulching mower, but that's all I have.
All right, Public Safety Committee, we have one item, which is an ordinance discussion, which is the misuse of the 911 system. Aaron, do you have this one? Or
I'm very eager to hear the Parks and Rec Committee report.
Oh,
President's in front.
jumped right
That's
over
why I
there.
came.
Sorry about that. I'm sorry, Commissioner Thomas.
I think
I
it was
crossed it
intentional.
off as I was saying it.
That's intentional.
Well, we moved it right along, didn't I?
Wow.
I'll tell you what, next committee report, you go first. Make up for that mistake. Sorry about
Read every
that.
other line for this one.
I was so excited to discuss the ordinance discussion. Park and Recreation Committee, what's that?
You can go for it.
No.
I can wait.
Park and Recreation Committee, Commissioner Thomas.
Okay, thank you. So our Music Fee Summer Concert Series continues, and due to a medical emergency, Southern Edge was unable to perform one of our weeks. So I'd like to give a shout out to Night Flight. They stepped in at the last minute and gave us a great concert. Unfortunately, our last concert this past Monday, we had to cancel with Philly Funk Authority because of the weather. But we do have two more. Monday, August 6th is Two Rocks Rye, and Monday, August 20th is High Noon. So please pray for good weather and come on out and listen to our bands. We have the 9th annual Dash and Splash 5K race that's scheduled for Wednesday, August 15th. Registration and check-in will begin at 5 p.m. The 5K race will start at 7 p.m. sharp. Children can participate in the Kids Fun Run, and that will start at 6:45 p.m. sharp. For more information and to register, you want to go to www.runtheday.com. The Aquatic Center is closing at 4 p.m. on Wednesday, August 15th for the Dash and Splash. But otherwise, activities are still continuing at that Aquatic Center. Nature Camp, it runs Monday, August 20th through Friday, August 24th. It's held at School Road Park from 9 a.m. to 11 each day. Thursday, August 23rd, the camp will run from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., and that's because they have an all-day field trip to Tyler Arboretum. The program is $25 for residents, $35 for non-residents. Spaces are limited, so make sure that you get in there and register quickly at hatfieldrec.com. Our Get Fit series continues. We have deep water aerobics. The class is offered at the Aquatic Center Saturdays from June 16th through August 25th at 9:30 a.m. There are 2 sessions available, each are 5 weeks long. They're $25 per session or $45 when you register for both together. It's pre-registration only. Again, you can register at hatfieldrec.com for that. We also have Aqua Zumba. That class is offered Mondays and Wednesdays from June 18th through August 22nd. So I think we're on our second phase of those already. So it's 7 p.m., to 8 p.m. They're each 5 weeks long, $30 per session or $55 when you register for both. Also pre-registration only, hatfieldrec.com to register. And last but not least, swim lessons. Registration is open for swim lessons at the Aquatic Center. You can register for one of the week-long sessions offered. You can register for beginner, intermediate, advanced, or private lessons. Lessons are scheduled for 30 minutes for those specific times. And group lessons are $30 for residents, $45 for non-residents. Private lessons are available for $125 for residents and $145 for non-residents. And again, if you'd like more information or specific lesson times, you can go to hatfieldrec.com. And that's all I have.
All right, my township manager is smiling at me because I skipped Commissioner Thomas. My apologies again, and as a penalty, public safety will go last. I'm going to skip public safety and go to Finance Committee, Commissioner Andrus.
Thank you. Financial report. So the 2017 audit has finally been completed. Some of the highlights for last year are the following. Total debt at the end of 2017 was $6 million, which is considered very low based on our government and accounting standards. The debt since then has been reduced to $4.6 million. If you recall, the Walnut Street Bridge grant was received. Hatfield Pension Fund has earned a 16% return in 2017 and it is now 91% funded, which is the highest it has been in the last 10 years. Non-uniform pension fund also received a 16% return for 2017 and is now fully funded for the first time in 10 years. So this is a special thanks to Commissioners Ziffeld and Rogers for serving the Township's Pension Committee, providing leadership and guidance to the Univest, who manages the funds. And I think they're available for hire if anybody wants those returns.
Some good returns.
The other item of note was the expenses for 2017 as compared to 2016 were less overall.
Right. Okay, all good news. All right, Public Safety Committee. Ordinance discussion with regard to misuse of the 911 system. Aaron, I think, do you have this one?
I think our...
I'm anxious to hear Aaron speak on this.
I waswasn't sure who was going to catch the ball.
I think our highly decorated police chief...
He wants to hear me speak, but I'm not real anxious to be speaking.
Chief's going to give a lengthy presentation on what exactly is happening.
Do you have slides?
94
I do. Aaron, can you get a slide?
slides in the presentation.
I have slides for everything but this topic. Chief, the floor is yours, sir.
So basically, this is to put a mechanism in place so we can deal with false 911s when it's, right now we have like fax systems that dial 911. And we have uncooperative business people. So instead of arresting them for a misdemeanor, we'd like to be able to issue them a citation if the need be. And it puts a mechanism in place to deal with it in a human manner instead of taking. We don't have an ordinance that covers that.
Unfortunately, it sounds like it happens enough that this is necessary.
We have one that's been 13 times, and they weren't cooperative. So again, we don't want to be overbearing with them. We want to deal with them at a proper.
13 times, Chief. Does that mean there's been 13 responses to that site?
Responded 13 times, and it's because of their fax machine. We say, you need to deal with this. You need to get this worked out, and they're not cooperative. So, and arresting them for a misdemeanor would be balance out justice. We'd like to have.
But I
Well, that might get their point across, though.
So will a $1,000 fine.
Sorry?
$1,000 fine will also get their
And
attention.
if it's a township ordinance, then the money comes directly to the township instead of the state.
Yeah, business owners have the ability to stop that from happening and just have chosen not to do anything about it.
Yeah, for whatever reason, they don't get on it.
Only want to go $1,000?
We can go as high as the commissioners would like. I would imagine there are some legal limits to that, which we can look into over the next few months. If the commissioners are interested, what this agenda is lacking, and that's my fault, but if we could have a motion to draft and advertise an ordinance, then we can have that for the board to consider at the August meeting.
Part of that process, we can look at what the limit would be for the fine.
And how do we enforce them paying that fine?
Well, they would have, with the citation, they would have the same as anybody getting a citation. justice, speaking their piece, we'll present our case, and they can appeal that.
Include court costs.
Include basin maintenance?
And attorney's fees.
Commissioner, please.
I realized the Phillies game got over, it was like 1:30, you know. Guys just wanna tell you.
All right, I'm sensing by way of consensus that, that we would, okay, does anyone want to make I'm sorry, Aaron, it was a motion to draft and
Advertise.
advertise misuse of 911 system ordinance. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Motion.
Motion by Commissioner Rogers, second by Commissioner Thomas. Any further discussion? All right, I'll call it question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. So what we're going to do is draft and then publish an ordinance with some of the, not only the overall concept that we have, but some of the specifics there, and then that would be available to us in our August meeting
Yes, sir.
for approval and confirmation of the ordinance. Okay?
Yeah, discussion and approval. If the board, you'll see the draft prior, but if you'd like to see it amended, we can obviously always changes if needed.
Okay. All right, let's move on to the action items. We have 5 of them. Is there a motion to award the bid to D'Angelo Brothers LLC for $26,566.50 for the Trail Improvements Montgo 2040 Grant Closeout?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Rogers, second by Commissioner Thomas. Aaron, I'm not sure if you want to you have any comments on this, or if it's kind of self-explanatory?
I'm sure you may not be eager to hear them, but I do want to go over a few things, Commissioners, if you don't mind. So just to recap, a few years ago, the Township was awarded $100,000 from Montgomery County. The 2040 grant program, we were actually the first municipality in the county to be awarded this grant. A year ago, we spent a significant portion of the grant to make some improvements. We have a pedestrian crossing now installed at Orvilla in Independence. We have sidewalks as you leave our trail system behind the Aquatic Center along Maple Avenue to make now a safer route. This is the final piece of the grant project. Once we finish this, we will have we'll be able to be reimbursed for the $100,000. So these are physical improvements to both the Fricks and the Chestnut Street Trail. First, where we have the crossing right now at Orvilla, we will have pavement markings to create a formal crossing at that intersection once the trail is complete, which it isn't yet, but we will have this put in, and then we just won't activate the crossing until we're ready to build the trail on the other side. That's one component of it. North Penn Road, which is along the current route of the Chestnut Street Trail. Right now, there is no delineation on the road as far as designating the trail itself, so we're going to have a nice green-ish lane for walkers, bikers to there safely. As you know, if anybody's driven or walked back there, the road is very wide, so we're able to put a 8-foot designated trail into the road without changing any of the center lanes to make it a safer experience for our trail walkers. That is the second piece of it. Then the third piece is the Chestnut Street portion, and actually you can see right here on Maple, this is where we put all the sidewalks in last year. So you'll be able to come out of our trail right here in the rear of the Aquatic Center, make a right on sidewalks where you couldn't do that before. You'll be able to walk up here, crossing into the Chestnut Street Trail, which right now is essentially a road. We're also going to put some pavement markings there that will also designate a specific area for the trail walkers to make sure it is as safe as possible. So these 3 components, the project was bid last week, as well as one other pavement marking that we'll talk about here in action item B. But like President Zipfel said, the low bidder is D'Angelo Brothers for $26,566, which is significantly less than the other 2 bidders. So the traffic engineer is very happy with the price for this project.
All right. Any questions or comments?
Involve the borough at all? I didn't know how far Hatfield Township goes down Chestnut.
We'll go to the municipal border. The borough's involvement was that we were able to apply for the funds as an intermunicipal grant because we are in many ways partnering because the trail does exactly the intermunicipal connection, which grant makers like to.
So they start at the creek there? Or?
Right around there, probably. Yep, right before the bridge. Yes. I believe the green is only for North Penn Road. The Chestnut, I think, is just going to have white. The green is more expensive.
Chestnut Street's a dead end, where North Penn Road has
Less traffic,
in both
yeah.
directions.
And nobody stays on that.
You don't have to. It's a
No
safety,
comment.
it's supposed to be a safety zone, but you're allowed to travel wherever you can in safety on the roadway.
All right, any other questions or comments? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. Next is Resolution 18-23. Is there a motion for approval with regard to the Cowpath Road pavement markings modification?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Rogers.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Andrus. Aaron, I think you have this one as well, and it sounds like it's related to what we just discussed.
It is, thanks, Mr. President. So within that bid, also, we included the markings for this project as well, and I will explain what exactly this is. On Cowpath Road toward Line Street, in between Line and Broad, you may, I'm sure all of us in here have traveled that piece often. You'll see the existing pavement marking features within the middle, a little harder to see. This might give you a better sense. There's a sign here that is very hard to see. Google Earth had, of course, had to have a massive truck driving right by it. Ren was taking that picture. But what it's saying is essentially you can't pass. There's no passing in this area. And what we've seen based on the current way the pavement markings are is many people, a lot of people will try to turn this into 2 lanes, even 3 at times is what you'll see. So the police have obviously ticketed some of the motorists going through the township, and it becomes a difficult discussion because the pavement markings aren't great. The signage, could be better. So we want to improve this intersection, improve this corridor, and PennDOT signed off on the design by the traffic engineer to create a more visible and wider, what they call the gore lines. So you'll have a more defined shoulder. You also have a wider area in the middle there, so that motorists will see that it's 1 lane only. And some will still, I would imagine, create that 2nd lane, but this will at least give a really strong visual as to what should be occurring out there. So this work will be performed at the same time as the other 3 that I just mentioned.
Right. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call the question on Resolution 18-23. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. All right, Resolution 18-24. Is there a motion for approval of the Cowpath or Villa realignment grant opportunity through the DCED?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Thomas.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Rogers. Questions or comment? Aaron, do you have this one as well?
Yeah, just briefly. So the township applied, as you know, a few months ago to PennDOT to receive full funding for the realignment of Cowpath or Villa. This is another grant opportunity through the Department of Community Economic Development, which if we receive either of the 2, we'll be able to realign the intersection. There'll be no more additional costs. All of the matches, the local matches have been met by far. The commissioners obviously bought all of the right-of-way, the 3 homes, the gas station. We are in a position now, we have 2 opportunities coming up in the next few months, and if we can get either one of them, we'll be able to realign that intersection. So fingers crossed.
That would be significant.
Very.
A lot of ways. All right, with that, I'll call the question. All in favor of Resolution 18-24, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. Resolution 18-25, is there a motion for approval with regard to the HTMA Special Study Neshaminy Interceptor Upgrade? So moved. Motion by Commissioner Andrus.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Rogers. Ken?
I'll take this one.
Aaron?
Sewer Authority is conducting a project upgrade one of its lines to accommodate future flow in this corridor of Hatfield Township. As the host municipality, commissioners have to pass a resolution as part of the process. It's to conduct a special study. What HTMA is doing, here's the current facilities running parallel with Orvilla. Here's the Hatfield nature area. Here's the Cowpath Orvilla intersection running parallel with Cowpath, and perpendicular with Orvilla. This is the intersection that we just talked about to realign. You'll see there's 2 parallel lines that exist right now within the sewer system. What HTMA is proposing, there's a 12-inch line and a 24-inch line. HTMA is proposing to abandon the 12-inch line and upgrade the 24-inch line to at least a 30-inch line, depending on what the study shows. Somewhat, this is the plan that was being proposed to DEP, and it just shows what's being abandoned and what's being proposed. So this is just part of the process, the resolution by the commissioners. The planning commission will also review. It will be published. Feedback will be, there'll be opportunity for public feedback. It's a DEP requirement for HDMA to do this project. At the end, they'll be able to accommodate more and future flow coming from that area of the township. This has been budgeted, and once the special study goes through, the HTMA can move forward with the project.
So there's a walking trail back there, or sort of a walking trail back there. Any way to try to get them to enhance that trail?
I can certainly talk to them about the opportunity to do that. Yeah.
It comes off the one road. It's kind of nice there. And when you go into the little development back there, there's a nice right-of-way that goes out into the development. But there's a really grassy area. It would be nice if that could be stoned or something like that.
Great suggestion. Sure. We'll look into that.
Right. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of Resolution 18-25, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. Last action item, Resolution 18-26. Is there a motion for approval of the appointment of Mike McCann as the Township's Municipal Code Official and Assisting Zoning Officer? Motion by Commissioner Andrews, second by Commissioner Rogers. Aaron, I know that this is a housekeeping item for us internally.
Yeah, just a housekeeping item. This employee already holds both of these titles. There's a code requirement to update this at certain
Periodically,
given
I
times.
think.
Exactly.
Right.
That's all this is.
Right. Okay, with that, I'll call the question. All in favor of Resolution 18-26, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing on that is approved. Township staff report. Aaron, is there anything on your?
I've spoken enough tonight, Mr.
All right.
President.
Solicitor's report. John, anything that you have?
Nothing further to report.
I just have one question. How's your ankle?
It's, my neck's hurt me lately, but not my ankle.
Were you out
Well,
late last night?
it's still 2 weeks away, so.
Were you out late last night, John?
I was, actually. Yeah, I was at a meeting. So.
All right, any citizens' comments? Yes. If you could, if you can.
Thank you. My name is Joanne Grassang. I live at 2606 North Broad Street in Colmer. You were saying when this new property is going to be developed about preserving trees. I've noticed in the last 2 years that the property at the corner of Cowpath and Walnut Street, Chapman Drive, they cut down every single tree on that property. No there. The other one is at Bethlehem Pike, across from, next to the railroad station. They're building a whole new development and a strip mall back there. Every single tree cut down. How are you talking about preserving the trees for this new property? Like it's happening.
I'm not sure about Cowpath and Walnut. I have to.
Chapman Drive.
It's Fortuna Circle.
Fortuna.
Right.
Oh, Fortuna, sorry.
Town-owned development.
Oh, sorry.
Fortuna Station.
Yeah.
Fortuna Crossing. Yeah.
Crossing, yeah.
And with the developments as they come through, the design is to show what you're preserving and what you're retaining, what you're preserving and what you're removing. On those two subdivisions, tree removals were all accounted for. Okay, and
What does that mean?
well, they showed on the plan what they were taking down.
On every single tree on both properties.
And it was shown that way on the plan. The
Why?
town,
If you're trying to preserve trees, like
the township has tree replacement requirements. Okay, the township also has pretty heavy-duty landscaping requirements to put in new
Right.
trees. So the distinction I made with the Aspen Mill subdivision was that they specifically chose to retain a fair amount of the wooded areas on that property. By choice, they were able to get credit toward their stormwater management design for doing so, but they consciously chose to not take down any more trees than they felt was absolutely necessary. On the other two projects, the developer and their engineers determined we're going to take down a lot more. And that was part of their design. We certainly try to encourage preservation of trees. And because of the stormwater management requirements, both with the township and with the state, there are incentives to do so. As part of development, sometimes the way it works out is that the developers just decide that they need to build on every bit of space that they can. And like I said, the township has pretty stringent tree replacement requirements as well as landscaping requirements for street trees and lot area plantings and such.
Oh, well, they put in little saplings, you know, diameter and taking down trees that are, 12 inches in diameter.
I understand, and I didn't mean for what I was saying before to seem contradictory to what you've seen with other developments. Like I said, the distinction with the Aspen Mill subdivision that we were talking about tonight is there's more of a need for them to preserve those trees than
It is a wooded area.
right than there was with some of the other developments that have gone on.
Why?
Because of the way the design kind of lays in, there are times where trees are preserved. There are other situations where the trees are, there might be green areas, but they're not necessarily great plantings. It's not anything you'd want to save. Sometimes the trees are dead or dying. So it looks pretty, admittedly, it looks pretty dramatic for some subdivisions, such as the ones that you're talking about. Fortuna, yeah, it looks pretty bad, but that's, like I said, that's the way the designs are done. Everything gets accounted for. We do try to encourage preservation of trees as within the limits of the ordinance requirements.
We do require them to replace, and so when Brian says to replace.
Them by 1-inch saplings.
Understood. I mean, obviously, the hope is that that 1-inch sapling will be a grown tree as it gets older.
In our lifetime?
Well.
Okay, thank you. I know, that's just my comment.
If the tree is, I mean, if they're building a development, you can't have trees, in the house. You'd have to clear out a particular area, and then they're expected, right, to put trees on the outside and landscape surrounding the area. So it's a good point you made, though, Brian, which is that it is oftentimes dramatic, sometimes when a development goes in.
No question, yep.
But thank you for that. But we have obligations for them to plant. And, right. Well, we have by right construction makes it difficult for us to do sometimes, because if they own the property, there's not a lot of authority that we have over them to say, you can't do this. It's theirs, they own it, it's privately owned. If you wanted to take a tree out of your backyard, township wouldn't be able to come up to you and say, you can't take that tree down, in many circumstances, because it's your property. All right, any other citizens' comments? All right, before we adjourn, I do need to announce that we are going into executive session to discuss personnel and contract negotiations related to thereto. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Thomas, second by Commissioner Rogers. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thanks for coming out, folks.